Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee Talk.
Hi, I'm Enid.
And I'm Ashley, and we are here with Tiffany James of Nessy. Thank you for joining us, Tiffany.
Thanks for having me. So sorry about all those technical difficulties that have made us about 35 minutes late now, but we're all here.
Well, the last time we had you on, I think we went live 45 or 50 minutes late because I kept having technical difficulties.
It's just, I don't know how that happens. We do these meetings all the time.
I know.
And these are the only two times that I've ever had such a, well, I don't know. One other time I think we had a difficulty. I think it was that meeting that I accidentally joined a few minutes ago. That one trouble with.
Well, and you and I both did that session for that group in Africa, and one of your employees who was in Texas was joining us. He couldn't hear any of us, and he just kept talking.
Yeah, that's true. That was the hard one. Yeah, bless his heart. He just kind of did his presentation without any feedback or anything. He just sort of ran through the whole thing. I think his slides wouldn't work. Yeah, that's true. These things just happen, don't they?
They do. I like the T-shirt that kind of says, the number one expression from 2020, your mic is muted.
Yes, that's pretty good.
That is a good one.
So thank you for being with us today. I appreciate you joining us, especially since it's so late where you are.
Yeah, what time is it where you are?
It's a little bit past it. We call it tea time, but that means dinner time. And we do call it, so the meal you have around 5 in the afternoon, 5, 6 in the afternoon, you call that tea. So a little bit past tea time for us.
Interesting. Yeah. So congratulations needs to go out to you and Mike and the team at Nessy for the release of Mical.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you so much. It's a labor of love for sure. So
I have to tell you, one of my clients said to me yesterday, she said, I watched Mical. She said, I bawled my eyeballs out. Mm-hmm. And I know that's the same, impact it had on me. Is just it's a short movie that has such an impact in such a short period of time. And it just comes over you, just the emotions, and it's very impactful.
It's amazing that the emotion of it, when they were filming it and we were on set and Mike watching it was quite difficult for him to watch in the beginning. And even after seeing it as many times as we've seen it now, he still gets emotional watching it because it brings back those memories from childhood. Mm-hmm. So it is a memory it is a movie that seems to elicit emotional responses in a lot of people, not just Mike. But I thought it would. For me as a mother watching it, it's just quite powerful. It just it reminds us all of kind of why we do what we do, and so many of the advocates that are making a big impact on dyslexia in the world around the globe are mothers who started this journey because they were a mother like Pat that just said, I don't know what to do, but I'm going to figure it out. I have a child that has needs, and the needs are not being met at the school. My child's being damaged at school, and I'm going to figure this out. And Absolutely. So I think we kind of can identify with that.
Yeah, well, and everybody I've talked to also says we need more. We want more of Pat's story. We want to, and so it's a beautiful story that leaves you wanting a little more or a lot more.
Yeah, I'd love to go further and tell more of her story. She's pretty extraordinary, and from that time, people start to come to her and say, when you helped your child, can you help my child? Mm-hmm. And that the Bristol Dyslexia Center grew out of that. It started in her kitchen, in her home, and then it moved to her, what as Americans we call a living room or a den, and here they call it a lounge. So it moved to the lounge, and it just grew until it was in a 5. There's a 5-story building next door where the Dyslexia Center is, and then after that, the school grew out of that. So there's a school for children as well, dyslexic children.
Oh wow. Well, and I was going to say, as a mother too, I haven't shown it to my son because I'm actually a little bit afraid of how he might respond to it from the emotional side. Yeah. Because, that one particular scene where Mical is in his room trying so hard to read and he has the emotional meltdown that he does is so similar to what we experienced that night that my son hit the wall. You know, he was sitting at my kitchen island.
Yeah.
And I was cooking dinner. I remember I had an 8-inch knife in my hand.
Yeah.
My husband was kind of, you know, doing his thing like around the house. So he's kind of in and out of the room. And my son is, you know, barely 7 years old. And he's sitting there with his book and he's trying and he's trying and he's trying. And, you know, he did not know all of the sounds of the letters of the alphabet. So he definitely couldn't take 2 letters and blend them together. So he had to sound out like the word "the" every single time he tried. And of course, he can't really sound it out because he doesn't know all of the sounds of the letters of the alphabet. And he's sitting there and he's trying and he just starts screaming and slamming his head on the kitchen counter while he's screaming, "I'm stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid."
Yeah.
And it was just one of the most horrific moments of my, as a mother too, the most horrific moments of my life. So Pat's agony watching that was something that, I mean, I was bawling through that whole thing. It was like, so I'm her, but I haven't shown it to my son yet since he's only 11. And I'm afraid of, I mean, he owns it. He's proud of his dyslexia. And he's like, you know, I'm awesome as I am. And, you know, the world needs to deal with me as I am. But I don't want to like, I don't want to make him relive that emotion yet. I feel
we wondered about that. You know, we've had a difficult time deciding what age range the movie is appropriate for. And we're really still not completely sure. I mean, if I do hope that it is shown in schools.
Definitely.
You know, from the standpoint of bullying and just understanding that you know, people have different needs, and you know, just kind of a sensitivity to other people that have a different way of learning than you. But yes, at the same time, we don't want it to be too kind of too violent, you know, because there is a bit of violence in there. You know, with him, you know, the kind of the fist fight that happens on the playground. Yeah. So,
but that stuff really happens on playgrounds. So the thing is it's perfect for schools. You know, from working in schools and just knowing that kids see a lot of stuff already on TV, and they see a lot on the playground, and kids are horribly cruel to each other at times. And so, I think it's important that they can identify with. There's not something wrong with me, and that's why I'm being bullied. To see it on the screen and say, oh my gosh, you know, this is something that other people feel, and this is something that, you know, people are going to talk about now. I think that's really beautiful. I think it's going to give kids and teachers a chance to really discuss these things, because they don't. Bullying's one of those things that just, you know, a lot of schools now, like the state of Nevada actually has bullying policies very strict because of a student who took his life in Vegas. And so they actually have statewide strict bullying policies. But in other situations, I know sometimes it's just like, let's just look the other way. We don't really have any policies. And it is important that we talk about it.
And we have had one comment that a mother showed it to her 8-year-old, and her 8-year-old loved it. So, yeah, I mean,
well, that's good to know.
I think it's an important movie for all kids to see. I know I know that I definitely want my son to see it. I think that it's an important thing for him to see, because I want him to know that he's not alone in his journey. And that definitely shows that to children. I just kind of want to have a conversation with him first.
Well, I mean, he's going to look at it from a different angle as well, because he has a deeper connection to the subject, because he has experienced maybe not the bullying issue, but he has experienced, you know, maybe the feelings of frustration and defeat that some children feel in school.
Definitely. And being told that he's just not trying, you know, exactly what Michael went through.
I'm not trying hard enough. If ever I had a pet peeve, you know, is when we hear that so many, you know, kids come and the parents write us and children write us, and they say, you know, they're telling me I'm not trying hard enough, I'm lazy, and they really are trying. You know, they really are trying just as hard as they can. Dyslexic kids can be some of the hardest working children in a classroom. So it does really hurt. It can really break their spirit to hear that over and over again. It can be really damaging.
Well, and I thought the actress that played the teacher was so brave. I mean,
Yeah.
she's
really a nice person, that lady. Like, very nice.
She delivered that, and just, I mean, she was mean.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, I mean, and Mike describes what he went through, and it's pretty accurate. And he went through that. He went to like 4 different schools, and he had a similar experience at every school that he went to. And he says to this day, he doesn't know what would have happened to him. Would he wound up in prison? What would have happened if his mother hadn't have stepped in and taken him out of school and out of that environment? And they began to, he began to heal at home, with her teaching him how to. And as he began to actually learn to memorize the sounds or know the sounds and then blend them into words and then learn the rules of English and began to be successful, and his mother's work too really built his self-esteem back up.
But that's one of the things I love too, is in those scenes, the joy that exists between Pat and Michael. And, you see this little boy light up and you see her joy. I mean, I almost cried more at that part than I did at the beginning.
Yeah. It's pretty extraordinary, the way that she did it. And when she did this, there weren't a lot of resources for dyslexia. There's still not as much as necessary, but there really was very little. And she actually had to she went over to the States and did some training with Diana King. She had to go all the way over to the States to do that. And then she did some training here as well. And like the movie shows, she went to the library. She started there because, she's just one determined woman. And she just said, everything you have on dyslexia or anything that's even closely related to dyslexia, I want it. And she read every single thing that she could and just started to study on her own. So
how much time did she get to spend with Diana King? I mean, that's amazing.
I don't know. I'd have to ask her. It's been quite a while ago, so I don't know.
So I want to share really quickly, because I've been doing some research on some statistics, and I know I'm not going to be able to read this right, but this university has a really long name. But a survey conducted by the University of Macedonia at the Aristotle University of long.
So is it in Macedonia?
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. I wouldn't even try to read that. But
yeah, right. I know dyslexic, right? Okay, no, that's a hard one for me. But anyway, on bullying, showed that students with learning disabilities suffer school bullying at a rate double to 10 times that of their peers. And while, I read that the other day, and then also higher rates of suicide with individuals with dyslexia. So both at the adult level and at the younger level. So it is just, your movie is so important on so many levels, just for making this, known.
I don't know if you know Heidi Gregory of Dyslexia Victoria Support, but they did a survey recently of their parents and their support group. And I don't have it at my fingertips, but it's something like 87% of parents believe that dyslexia or reading difficulties in general are negatively or very negatively affecting the mental health of their child. And when I saw that, I thought, wow, that's a big number. That's a big number of these parents. And parents usually know. A mother or father usually knows that they usually know what's going on with their child. So if they're saying this is negatively affecting my child's mental health, it likely is. And that's a lot of kids being negatively affected.
That is.
Well, and another study talked about how most students, the majority of students who are dyslexic that enter school at 4 are happy, well-adjusted, confident, feel really like they can do anything. And then they get into the school system that doesn't teach them the way they need to learn. And
and their little spirits are broken in about a year.
Sadly.
Yeah. As an early childhood teacher, you see them coming in, they're bouncing in, they're happy. So that's another pet peeve of mine. When people say, I want to encourage the joy of reading in this child, or encourage the love of reading. Well, teach them to read, because children come into school and they want to learn to read. So you don't need to drill it into them. Teach them to love learning and love reading. They come in wanting to learn to read. So just teach them to read, and there you go. You're,
And then you beat that out of them, that they don't really want to learn and read after that, because
no, they
it's so
don't. I mean,
challenging.
if a child is older and you're having to, try to drill in the joy of reading to them, it's likely because they've never been taught to read in the first place.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, and you're absolutely right. I mean, I was talking to somebody once and I was just like, I think it was an ARD meeting that I was attending. And I said, kids are so excited to go to school because they feel like that's a big step into like the adult world that kids have mythologized in their heads, because they love their mom and dad so much, and mom and dad's an adult. I want to be just like my mom and dad. Yeah. And they enter with so much joy, and then instantly it's like, drill and kill.
Well, and many of these are highly curious, highly creative beings.
Yeah.
Too. So they want to learn it. They want to know, and they get in there, and it's very difficult.
You can see it being just sort of crushed out of them so early.
Yeah.
Because children know when they're in kindergarten, even preschool, kindergarten, first grade, they understand that, hey, all these other people are getting it. There's something going on with all these other people, and there's something going on with me. Right. I'm not quite figuring it out like they are. And they know that early. They begin to realize there's something here that I'm not. And if we would address literacy in the most effective ways when they're in kindergarten, you wouldn't have that, because you would be meeting those needs immediately. So you wouldn't have all these kids feeling like, oh gosh, I'm not getting it, and they're all getting it.
Right.
It starts pretty early.
Yeah, and assessment is key. You have to be assessing these students along.
Yeah, you have to continuously be assessing, monitoring their progress, and filling those holes as they occur.
Yes.
In a structured way, early way, and then you wind up with most of them can just read. And listen, I'm dyslexic. I have dysgraphia, and I'm always going to be dyslexic and have dysgraphia. Dyslexics will always be dyslexic, but you can teach them to read. And if you give them that tool in their tool bag, you're opening up the world of academics, and you're opening up the world of job opportunities and life successes, and you're giving them all kinds of options if you teach them to read.
Absolutely. And there's one particular thing, though, that your film captures so succinctly that, tragically is still happening across our schools, which is Mical was being pigeonholed for behavior.
Yeah.
They weren't identifying the fact that he was actually struggling in school. They were pigeonholing him for behavior. And that's exactly what's happening to our kids first is they're wiggling, so they must have ADHD. So, let's talk about ADHD. Or they're defiant, so they must have oppositional defiance disorder. Or they're talking back, so they're rude. Let's punish the child for the behavior instead of figuring out why a child, especially a little one who doesn't have the language and vocabulary to express what's actually going on with them, their brain's not developed enough for them to actually express what's happening inside of their head emotionally. Let's punish them instead of trying to figure out what's going on with them academically.
Or better yet, let's put them in a self-contained classroom and just stick them in the corner and say, I don't know how to teach them. And that happens.
Right.
It's crazy. I've had 2 kids that we've gotten out of the self-contained classroom. And one of them didn't have rhyming. We're talking 3rd grade. Didn't have rhyming, didn't have syllables, didn't have phonemic awareness. They kind of said, oh, well, she's self-contained classroom. She started mimicking the behaviors of the other students in the self-contained classroom as they were more, significantly impaired. And get her out of the self-contained classroom, teach her how to read, starting with rhyming. She's rhyming syllables. She's learning phonics rules. Like it's so, it happens a lot that the system doesn't know how doesn't know how at that point to teach this student. So they literally just kind of wash their hands of it and say, okay, we'll just put them over here.
And what does it do to their self-esteem when they start to rhyme and they start to read and they start to feel like, oh, I can do this? Yeah, I mean that. Twofold.
What does it do to your self-esteem when you're in the self-contained class and you're brilliant?
Yeah.
And then what does
Yeah.
it do to your self-esteem when you're like, oh, I can read. This is awesome. Look at me.
Yeah.
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 And then to find out she just has a significant auditory processing difficulty. So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah. So
yeah, you know what we're doing to our children in school is just so wrong.
mm-hmm.
And I know we're quite bold in our social media and the quotes that we put out there. You know, when Mike says something or I say something that's quite, it's you know, people find it sometimes to be quite loud and offensive. But I mean, we're tired of our children, and we're, you know, the world's children. We're tired of these dyslexic children being damaged by school. We're tired of it.
Mm-hmm.
And when, you know, when Mike says something like, it's, you know, it's, the teachers are not being trained, and this is I can't remember how he put it. It was an atrocity or something. You know, that's really what he said, and that's really what he feels. So there's so much work to do. Teachers need to be trained so they know what to do with dyslexic kids in the classroom. And to be honest, if they would just teach all the children like all the children were dyslexic, you know, we society would be in a much better place anyway. We would just teach them all that way. But we're just tired of that.
And I'm completely with you. And one of the things I say frequently is remediation is not a unicorn.
Yeah.
You know, it's not this mythical, unattainable thing that just because a child is dyslexic. And I had this conversation with my son recently because I mumbled something under my breath and he was like, Mom, what did you say? And I said, I'm so sick of the school assuming that you're disabled just because you're dyslexic.
Yeah. That's a pet peeve of mine too.
Yeah. There's no respect for the fact that you can learn just because they don't understand how to teach you.
How to teach you. It's an instructional problem. I mean, I've always said that dyslexia is an instructional problem. It's not a broken part of the child. The child isn't broken or defective. It's really an instructional problem. And I don't mean that as disrespect to teachers, because I'm a teacher, Mike's a teacher, Pat's a teacher, my grandmother's a teacher. We love teachers. And teachers they're not provided with the tools and the knowledge to take care of them properly. So, but it is an instructional problem. Maybe not the teacher's fault, but it's
a system,
somebody's fault.
Systematic problem.
System's fault.
It's the system, because the system's broken. The teachers want to do the best for the students always, you know, I mean, that's always been my experience, but the system is saying, no, this is how you're going to do it right now. And when you're talking about if we teach all kids in a particular way, right now, only 40% of our students in America are reading at grade levels. So at 7th grade and 4th grade. So, I mean, obviously what we're doing isn't working.
But yet we keep doing it. We keep doing it year after year after year after year.
And that's the atrocity. That's the thing that makes us so frustrated.
Yeah.
And buying all the bolt-on components that come out from the bad programs year after year after year, when movements like ours go, you're not doing it right.
Yeah, you know, that's a difficult one, you know, and because you've got you have some, you know, big companies that own most of the publishing, and so and they have relationships with schools. So these are difficult problems to solve.
It is. And I think I've said this before, but, you know, at whatever point that publishing companies converted themselves into consulting companies was an absolutely brilliant move from a business perspective. I mean, just the genius behind that is overwhelming. It's evil, but
yeah, there's a lot of genius marketing happening out there.
Definitely.
And that's why the system is the way it is.
Really good marketing happening.
Yeah. I mean, and, you know, the fact that districts are hiring consultants from the publishing companies in order to help them guide their decisions and implement and, you know, do this and do that. I mean, how much are
lobbyists too, you know? Yeah.
Well, but how many lawsuits is it going to take? Because eventually, the state of California is now on they're being sued for the second time. The first time the parents were awarded, or the settlement was, you know, in the billions. So it's, you know, I think so. I get my things wrong sometimes, but it was a large amount. So it's just, you know, I guess there's going to have to be a lot of lawsuits before something.
Yeah, it is a difficult problem, and you wonder what to do. You know, you guys do a brilliant job of trying to hit it from the advocacy as a parent, you know, working through the IEPs and those kinds of things. And
thank you.
You know, we just right now we're trying to work at it from seeing if we can use our voice to say, hey, you should be teaching teachers, and raising money for teachers to be trained, teachers that want to be trained in a Norton Gillingham or a Science of Reading method, no matter where they are in the world, and using that. And we're going from, there's Enid, we lost you for a minute.
Sorry.
But yeah, we're going at it from that way. Kind of trying to address the at the teacher level, if that's our goal at this point.
Definitely. And, I know that the IDA has International Dyslexia Association, at least in this country. I don't know if it's in England too, you would have to tell me, but like the certification that they're giving to certain universities, if they do implement science of reading methodologies within their education curriculums. So
right. Yeah, there are a few schools. What is it, like 10 or 15?
It's not very many. Yeah. I mean, consider the number of universities and colleges in this country. It's probably less than 0.001%.
Yeah. They're working on it though. So that's,
they are.
Yeah.
I feel like it's its own battlefront, because as much as the publishing companies control the university system, I mean, that almost requires its own dedicated force in order to try to unseat that balance, I feel.
The problem is a pretty big one. I have no idea how to even attack it, how to even approach it. But yes, we don't have that in the United Kingdom. We when people come to us, we do recommend they look at the knowledge and practice standards of the International Dyslexia Association, because we believe those are the best in the world. Australia has some great standards as well, coming out of Ausfeld, or great directives and research, and they're very evidence-based, so they have some great things coming out over there as well. But we do recommend the knowledge and practice standards. There are some teacher training programs that say they're using those. When I looked at the way that they're using those, they sort of are and they're sort of not. That's just a little bit of a lack of understanding, because they're still throwing in some whole language stuff kind of mixed in. Mm-hmm. Because I guess it's just the way they were taught, and they were it's ingrained within them. And so, yeah, they look at some of the knowledge and practice standards data points and say, oh, yes, we do that. But then they're substituting in kind of a Goodman-esque stuff. And no, that's not what it means.
But any whole language causes bad habits. And so,
yeah. No, it shouldn't be in there at all. It should not be in there at all.
And so that's the thing is if teachers really knew that there's going to be a lot of bad habits that they're going to have to work on later to change, they probably wouldn't be using something that, is not only failing kids, but causing them to develop compensatory strategies that turn into bad habits.
Right. Yeah. So the IDA does have, it is leading the world. I would say the IDA and Ausfeld are leading the world with kind of thought and kind of putting information in place for teachers, specialists to be guided by. And yes, the whole language. I think both of you guys know how I feel about that. That needs to be gone. That needs to be out of every classroom. Getting it out of every class. I mean, it's really difficult because most teachers were trained that way. And, here we hear this, people write us and say, well, phonics doesn't work for dyslexic kids. And I say, what are you talking about? And some of them truly believe that phonics doesn't work for dyslexic kids. And then they switch over to behavioral optometry and whole language kinds of things. And then they're really interested in, doing these kind of accommodations. So giving them AT to make up for the fact that they didn't teach them to read. And right. I'm a full believer in AT when it's necessary, but I'm also a firm believer in actually teaching. You should be teaching them to read when they're young. Mm-hmm. Instead of just relying on that.
You don't want the AT to become a crutch. You don't want the AT to replace the skill. So the AT is only there to take away the struggle.
I'm telling you, you're not going to always be able to have a pen in your pocket when you go to the grocery store. You're not going to always be able to, or what about when you're driving down the road in a street sign? Technology has not advanced to the point where those, there are some glasses that are supposedly going to be able to read the street signs for you, but they're not working well yet. I don't know if you've seen those, but Scanners that read, they're the glasses that you put on that read every package. They're supposed to recognize faces, and you're supposed to be able to read them when you're on the wear them when you're on the highway, and it reads the signs out to you.
Well, as we learned from this morning, technology doesn't always work.
It doesn't always work.
And
But if you teach a kid to read, they have that skill the rest of their lives.
So
you're just giving them a beautiful tool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the most ridiculous example, but I have literally said in numerous ARD meetings for my child when, oh, well, he's got graphic organizers. Oh, well, he's got speech to text. Oh, well, he has. Oh, well, he has. Oh, well, he has. I'm sitting here going, and when the zombie apocalypse actually happens, like,
yeah, where are we going to be? Yeah, exactly.
And look at me like it's the most ridiculous statement. I'm like, it is the most ridiculous statement ever. But you paused and you thought about what I said, and that was the point in me saying that to you, because that can't be the excuse for you to not teach him to his intellectual capability. That's my point here, people. Listen to what I'm saying.
Yes, I'm with you there. I mean, I feel really strongly about this too. It can't be this whole idea of, oh, well, AT will bridge the gap between your child and all the other children so the teacher can teach the curriculum. Well, that's one. We're talking about 5 and 6-year-old kids here. That's wonderful. But I mean, basically what they're saying is she doesn't need to teach this child to read. She doesn't need to, because he has a tool. So he can do his history work and his science work and everything else using this tool, and she never has to teach him to read. And granted, she probably doesn't have time to do this explicit instruction. She probably doesn't know how, but but just relying on the AT to do it is just wrong. It's denying these kids the chance to have that tool, that ability to be an independent reader and writer, just to be able to fall back on it if they lose their tool, if they lose their device, what happens then if they, if it's, or like you say, the zombie apocalypse.
Well, and but we know that, when it clicks for students too, how that feels and how empowering that is. And, so why would you take that away? And everybody, why are you
taking that away? Yeah.
And it's, the other thing is for kids on the spectrum, I find a lot that they'll say, oh, they can't learn to rhyme, or we can't teach them phonological awareness, or they're not able to pick it up or whatever. There's a study out there, I talked about this before, where it's actually more important. They found, or, as important, if not more important, to make sure you focus really strongly on phonological awareness for kids on the spectrum. And I find all the time, because you have to teach them sometimes in a different way, just like kids with dyslexia, that it's just, oh, it's too hard to teach them to rhyme, or it's too, but every student I've ever worked with, can pick up these skills and can progress and learn to read. There's not a student out there, unless you have extremely low cognitive functioning possibly, that can't learn to read. So
any student in the average range, or even a bit below average range, of IQ up to anything in between that, from that to very high, you can teach them to read, and that's going to be most of your classroom.
There's so much misunderstanding about reading instruction. Equal amount of understanding about writing instruction. Equal misunderstanding about the importance of spelling. Equal misunderstanding about the importance of handwriting. Because a lot of our schools across this country stopped handwriting instruction. And so, like, my son, like you, Tiffany, is both dyslexic and dysgraphic. Privately, because his dyslexia was so severe, that's what we focused on privately. We were like, if we have to choose between these two things,
you got to do that first.
We're doing the dyslexia first, and we will get to the dysgraphia at some point in the future. So now he's 11, and we are now working on handwriting. He's got a private tutor who that is her only job, is his handwriting. But because of his dysgraphia, he writes, bear in mind, this is English. He writes from right to left, bottom to top. So the segmenting of his letters as he writes them. The window is closed to fix that. She can write. So we write left to right, top to bottom. He's writing right to left, bottom to top. she's like, I can improve his legibility rather significantly. I can't fix his segmenting. He will write backwards for the rest of his life. And I'm so frustrated with that because I kept pushing on his handwriting in every single ARD meeting. And the answer was, well, we can read his handwriting. So I don't understand what the issue is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'll have Enid weigh in too, but it's been my experience that I agree that you get to a point, you get to an age where the window is really closed, and it may not be that you cannot improve those things, but the amount that the child needs to do just to stay on pace with peers at that point, and the amount of subjects they need to take, and all of everything, is piling on more and more work at that point. Spending time on handwriting may not bear the most fruit for you. I mean, you just may not have the time to make a significant impact. But I'm not sure what Enid's opinion is.
Well, no, and I agree. And I think if you, it's just like anything else with early intervention. If we're focusing on
it has to be early.
Pencil grasp and appropriate, how you're supposed to hold the pencil and write on the page and all that. If we're working on that at a young age,
right,
letter formation and all of that,
right.
And again, like anything else, if they don't have phonological awareness skills, you're assessing them, you're finding those holes, you're taking them aside, you're working on it. If they're writing backwards, you're saying, wait a minute here, let's possibly bring in the OT, or and I know you asked for that so many times, and your story is very sad because you were fighting for him, and but I really still encourage people to still try to ask for an OT really early on if you're very concerned, because we do have OTs in the schools for this. Getting an OT is a huge battle. Some schools it's easy, some schools it's not.
It was not educationally necessary.
Right. And that's what a lot of states and schools will say. He's able to do it. He's he's academically where he should be. Right. And so, but yes, it's one of those things, try to catch it early. I highly, highly, highly recommend handwriting without tears, because I use it with my daughter.
That's mine. That's what I recommend.
Handwriting without tears. It's not cheap, I think, but I had an OT who used it with my daughter. Luckily, I was very fortunate. But brilliant program. So I highly, highly recommend that. That's probably the best thing I've ever seen out there.
Yeah, me too. That's what I always recommend.
Yeah, I'm very confident he's got a great tutor. I mean, she's come very highly recommended to me, not just from the person that initially recommended her to me, but I went to other people that I knew, a couple of different cults here in Houston, because NIHouse is here. So cult's kind of a big thing in Houston, but I went to a couple of them that I know and said, have you heard of this person? What do you think? And they were like, oh my gosh, she's great. So I was like, okay.
There you go.
Yeah. And as long as he can write and get his thoughts out and he's confident, I mean,
I'm kind of with you there. Because of his age, I would be.
That's
we're more focused on that. Getting the ideas onto paper.
Exactly. So that's what I'm working on. That's the instruction that I'm trying to provide to him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's going to be invaluable.
Can you tell everyone what a cult is? Because I didn't know what it was forever.
Yeah, definitely. So like Tiffany mentioned earlier, the IDA has all of these different kinds of licensure, if you will, or licensure is not the right word because they're not all licensing, but specific kind of trainings that they support. So like you've got Wilson certified.
Credential them maybe? I don't.
Yeah. You've got Wilson certified AOGPE, or is it AGOPE? It's AOGPE, right?
Yeah. I think so, yeah.
And then CALT is one of them, which is Certified Academic Language Therapist, which is managed by ALTA, Academic Language Therapist Association.
Okay.
But it's just one of those kinds of certifications that you can, or credentialing that you can get, that's supported by the International Dyslexia Association. So, but again, because NIHouse is sitting here and their program goes up through ALTA, which is again the CALT thing. So CALT's kind of a thing here in Houston, that a word that gets thrown around a lot because of that relationship, because of location.
And the IDA has its own exam.
Yes.
CSLT right? CSLT?
You broke up for a second. What's it called?
Is it CSLT? Certified Structured Language Teacher. That's someone that has passed the
I think
IDA's exam.
Oh, is that new? No.
It's been around maybe 3 years, 3 or 4 years, something like that. So
I know what we tell people is to go look at the IDA list of what programs that they recommend and what certifications or licensure or whatever that they support when you're looking for assistance for your child.
Yeah, you're going to want somebody that is well versed there. I think it's this Center for Effective Reading Instruction. That's the IDA's kind of partner, or maybe they started that.
So I don't want to let too long go by without bringing up your new book.
Oh, that's kind of you. Yes. That's this one. What I need.
Yes. So so excited. And
you guys outdid yourself. So, I couldn't believe the first book was so incredible.
It really,
there could be another one that just, I was just.
So this one, I wanted to write a book that kids could use to. That's Mike's book. That's kind of go together.
Books,
But and he hasn't. So this one, the one you have is an older version, I bet, because there's a 4th edition, and some of the pages are are different. We evolve with the science, so some things have been updated in the 4th edition that were not there in the beginning, because I think he wrote it. I can't remember when that was, 2015 maybe. So things change. There's new science evolves. We know more. We change. So there's a new edition there. I have to try to remember to send you guys the newer ones. So you can see the new
2015.
Yeah. So you have one of the older ones.
I think I do too.
Yeah. So I'll try to remember to do that, to get the Texas office to send you guys a new one.
You're so wonderful.
And then
and I'm looking forward to receiving that one.
Okay. Yes. That one. The same illustrator, Leah, is brilliant. She's just wonderful. Leah's done quite a few children's books, but she's done these 2 for us, and she's really, really wonderful. Mm-hmm. And the idea behind the book was I wanted a book to do several things, but one thing was to help give kids the words to self-advocate for what they need with their teachers, and to say, this is what I need to be successful in your class. Because I truly believe that, like I said, I come from a family of teachers. I'm married to a teacher. His family is teachers. Most teachers, we go into teaching because we want to help kids. We go, a lot of us go in because we feel like there's something we can do. We can contribute to children. And they want to know. Teachers want to know, how can I help these kids? I don't know what to do. I just don't know what to do. So this is a really small step. It's more about accommodations. This is what I need in your class to be successful. It does say that I need structured literacy instruction. And I do realize that they're going to go in and say, okay, I need structured literacy. And the teacher's going to look at them like, what's that? I don't know how to do that. But it is that. And then it talks about kids that are doing the things that they love to do, because that's important for dyslexics. It's important to give them time to spend time on the things that they're wonderful at, and that they're great at, and where their gifts and talents and interests are. Because so often we hear parents say, well, the teacher said, or the school said, we have to give up gymnastics, or we have to give up all the art classes, and we have to give up everything other than reading, because that's where my kid is struggling. And that's the wrong thing to do. It's absolutely wrong. Kids need that for their self-esteem. They need to be able to, and to be able to really work on and really get good at these things that they love to do, because they do. I mean, these dyslexic kids often become exceptional at things that they love, whether it be art or sports or science, whatever it is they do.
Mm-hmm. One of my students, I was going to say, one of my students is an elite gymnast, and she goes 4 hours a day. And she needs to get her energy out. Her mom says if she doesn't get her energy out, then she, she can't focus. So for her, it's a focus issue. So I'm sorry, I wanted to throw that in
No, that's a great point.
as an outlet. Yeah.
And then there's also a section in here, and it's about dyslexic adults. And then there's Enid.
Oh.
I don't know if I can make it so you can see it. But yeah, these are, and I chose people that were specifically making a contribution to the dyslexic community, and especially children. So there are various people in there from around the world, different places around the globe, but there are people that are passionate about helping children and really making a contribution to bettering the lives of children. So yes, Enid is in there.
I was so touched. Actually, that was one of my greatest honors, because as a dyslexic, you never truly feel successful. You just don't. I got my master's degree and I felt successful, but there's always that little, like, success is this like elusive thing, you know, because everything's a little bit hard. So it just kind of, it felt good just to feel like, you know, I love contributing to this space and to kids, but as a dyslexic who's worked really hard, it was such an honor to be in your book, and just to say that, you know,
agreed to do it. I'm glad you're in there.
And I can't wait to meet Heidi Gregory. We've connected. Another successful dyslexic.
Yeah, she's a powerhouse advocate too. Yeah, from Australia. She can she takes care of business. It's not like Ashley. She's a powerhouse, man. She just really makes things happen. She's one of those people that can just make things happen.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say the illustration cracked me up because it is so, she captured my personality. I'm like, wow. Yeah. I'm talking with my hands.
Yeah, I described her to you, and then I described you to her. Sorry, and then gave her some pictures and things, and she really got it.
Yeah, because very honored, very touched. Thank you so much.
She's great. Leah's fantastic.
Yeah, she is.
Is the book released now? It is.
It is released. What I've heard is that the American ones are held up in customs.
Okay.
So they will get them soon. I know they're taking orders. It's on Amazon there, and or it will be on Amazon. I think Dyslexia Explains on Amazon, but I think they'll put it up on Amazon as soon as they get it in their hands. I don't know. There was some sort of an issue in customs, but they're working on it. It is released though. It's been out for about a month, I think.
And you have some extraordinary kids in there too, don't you?
Yes, we do. Yes. Some fantastic ones. And that's right. That's right. I'd forgotten it. Graham is in here, isn't he?
I know. I love that.
Yeah. And I had a lovely bunch to choose from of kids, because there were different ones that had written in and sent their pictures and told their story to the lovely Lucia that takes care of all this for us. She makes those little videos and organizes all of that. And there were so many, and I had Lucia go through the list and kind of narrow it down to a group that were kind of her favorites. And we sat around and talked about the ones. And so Graham was on that list. I'm trying to find his page.
He's so excited. He can't wait to see it.
I can't imagine. That is so cool.
Yeah, I know Lucia will send one to Graham personally as soon as she's able to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know if she'll send it from the UK or if she'll have the Texas office send it, because we have some of the American English versions in the UK as well, but I don't know. I'm sure she's on it. She's usually on top of that kind of thing.
She has emailed me and she asked for my address and I gave it to her. So
okay, she's working on it. She's probably, it may be the customs issue. I'm trying to find Graham. There's Graham.
And
I love it.
Oh, he's so
So tell the story of his birthday that year, real quick. What he did for his birthday.
Oh gosh. So that's so Tiffany's ask for Dyslexic Superhero Kids came out shortly after his birthday that year. So gosh, it was his 10th birthday. And, he's not a spoiled child by any stretch of the imagination. So he was getting ready for his birthday and he said, "Mom, you and Dad have given me everything that I need, so I don't want anything for my birthday this year." And I said, "Okay." He said, "But there's one thing I want to do." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, can we do a fundraiser and raise money to buy dog food for animals in an animal shelter? And I said, yes, let me think about that. But yes, we can do that. And the reason is in 2017, I was charity fail. I was trying to teach him about charity. And we found a dog on the Harris County Animal Shelter's Facebook page that was about to be euthanized. And he was this sad looking dog. And he donated money to try to get a rescue to pick up this dog. And after about 3 days, Mom, is he still alive? Mom, is he still alive? Mom, is he still alive? My husband said, what are y'all talking about? I explained it. And he said, go get the dog. So the dog has been living with us since 2017. He turned 5 this week.
Yeah.
He was almost dead when we adopted him. He was so sick, and he is perfectly healthy, and he is Graham's dog 100% through and through. He's crazy about that dog.
And then how much money did he raise?
$1,400 for his 10th birthday.
That's a lot of, a lot of money.
So I've got a Grand Cherokee, and let me say that and Graham was still in a car seat or booster seat, I should say, at the time. We filled that car to its maximum capacity. He was like in his car seat like this, like shoved up. His knees were against the seat in front of him because we just had that much food in the car. And it took 4 of us about 20 minutes to unload my car once we got to the animal shelter. But they
did a good job. That's such a good story.
That is a great story.
It's a great story.
They said the food would only last 3.5 days.
Yeah.
They had so many dogs at the shelter, but they have a 90% success rate with adoptions.
Nice.
Really good.
So they were like over the moon.
And that's when we're talking about strengths of children with dyslexia, or you know, it's that compassion, that
that's one of them, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And wanting to, be nurturing. Yeah, that's
one of them we see all the time, isn't it? When you're assessing dyslexics or working with the families of dyslexic kids.
He wants to have enough land when he's older that he can run his own animal sanctuary. Kind of thing. So
love of animals is
But I sent in a picture of him with Henry right after we adopted Henry to Tiffany's call for super cool kids, and y'all made a video about him, and then you called me one day and said he's going to be in my book, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Leah, I like the way Leah's interpretation of the story was she has him playing chess with with Graham. She has Harry playing chess with Graham.
I love it
because he loves to play chess.
That's funny. I mean, just kind of showing the friendship between them, I guess.
No, the book is incredible, and if anyone hasn't read the first one, I mean, to get both of them together, even it's just it's empowering, the books for kids. When I read them with them, it helps them to realize just that everything that they're experiencing is quote unquote normal, for kids in kid terms. So I had one student one time when we were reading it, and she was saying, oh, that's me. I have processing issues. Sometimes I can't remember stuff, but for her to be able to identify it and not get frustrated and feel like something's wrong with her. But she was also able to identify so many strengths. So being able to identify the challenges, along with the strengths.
That's important. That's something Mike says all the time. And I believe this is there's no shame in dyslexia. It's part of who we are. We're a mixture of strengths and weaknesses, just like everybody else. So just ours are a little differently arranged than the other 80% of the class. But we're all a mixture of strengths and weaknesses.
Well, when you said, sorry, really quickly, but I was going to say, when you said earlier about being a disability, you guys brought that up, and this thought went through my head. But the fact is, if you teach them early, catch them early, it's not going to be a disability. The only reason it is a disability is because they weren't addressed early. So I think that's really important too.
It's something we all scream from the rooftop, and people don't seem to be listening, but we keep screaming it over and over again. Do it early, and you're going to have very few. There's going to be a small percentage of those of kids. You're going to get most of them reading and writing, and then you're going to have a small percentage that are so severe that they are still going to need one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
But again, calling it a disability is something that is difficult for me, because dyslexics are able to learn. So they're not truly unable to learn.
Right.
They are very able to learn when they're taught the right way. Now, I understand that the word disability, especially in this country, is what they need to have in order to open up resources. So if they don't have the word disability attached to their labeling and in their plan, then they can't get extra resources. So, that's why people
it's like
call
my
it.
wise student said. He said, I don't like them calling me learning disabled. He said, I'm perfectly able to learn. He said, I think they're teaching disabled because they can't teach me.
That's exactly what it is. It is.
It is. That's what I was going to say too, because Graham overheard a conversation like this one day, and he sat on it for about 3 or 4 days, and he came in here one day and he had tears in his eyes, and he goes, am I disabled? And I was like, no, you're not disabled, not by any stretch of the imagination. It's the system that's disabled, because, like you were just saying, Tiffany, if you think about everybody's strengths and weaknesses, we wouldn't think to classify this as a weakness for anybody if we just taught it.
If you just taught it. Yep. There you go.
Yeah. But because we refuse to teach it, and because we force a label in order to gain services in a system that just denies across the board, then it's a thing. We've made it a thing when it shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it is that whole issue of labeling to get services, and I don't mind the dyslexic label either, because it's just kind of a way of describing part of who I am, and I'm absolutely fine with that. But I would take issue if somebody said, well, you're learning disabled, because I'm not learning disabled. I am dyslexic, but I'm not learning disabled.
Exactly. But that's exactly it. Is you're not, Enid's not, and my son's not, and nobody that is. You're capable of anything that you literally want to achieve, and so the idea that you can't because you're dyslexic is just a shameful way to look at it.
There's that movie Rethinking Dyslexia. Have you guys seen that, or something like? But they talk about is exactly me in grad school. One of the women in the movie was saying, I had to have flashcards, and I had to read the flashcards, and I had to say the flashcards to myself, and I always had a big pile of flashcards.
Embracing dyslexia.
Oh, maybe that's what it is. Sorry. But I know. But so they talk about all of the different, ways that different people had to get through it, right? And so I got straight A's all throughout school. I mean, got into the grad program, which is extremely competitive, got straight A's all throughout because I had to. I just studied differently than everybody else, and I just had to figure that out. But I had to figure it out because no one could figure it out for me. Yeah. So that's the challenge, is that it's not that I couldn't learn but I literally had to figure out, okay, I have to have flashcards. I can't just read it in a book because I'm an auditory learner, so I have to hear it.
And I had a friend in high school that, of course there were probably...
Sorry, my teenager goes, is that bad? Yeah, I'm in the middle of like a live podcast right now. Can
you... I had two friends in high school that I knew of that were dyslexic. But I remember one of them, she stayed up until almost 4 a.m., I think, every single night, creating and studying her flashcards. I mean, she just owned thousands of flashcards because that's how she learned, was exactly that same way, as she just did all of her language, all of her, and she was rocking it in Spanish, but Spanish was just...
Gosh, I'm envious of that.
Yeah. Right. So for any student, they have to figure out how they learn, and hopefully they can have teachers along the way that help them figure it out. But again, we have to help teachers. In the college programs, we have to educate teachers on the different ways of learning as well.
Definitely.
Mike, I just want to share this because he shared this on a meeting just the other night. I've heard this story many times before, but when he was in law school, this was before word processing was people had computers, but it wasn't, we didn't have as many as we have now. So he would take sellotape. So in America, we call that Scotch tape. So he would take Scotch tape and make these enormously long pieces and then cut up the words on little pieces of paper and tape it all together in Scotch tape and move it around on the wall
Oh, wow.
until he could get it. I mean, that's a strategy,
Right?
Legal briefs to get through, to get through law school.
And that was his strategy.
That was
worked
his
for him.
strategy. But
Exactly.
when people say, "Oh, dyslexics are lazy," no. We're all working really hard.
Highly intelligent people will often take the path of least resistance. I've noticed
Yeah.
that in life. So that may look lazy sometimes as well. And then sometimes they're working as hard as they possibly can and they're being pegged as lazy. So
yeah, I remember on somebody's podcast or one of like overcoming dyslexia or embracing dyslexia or one of those, somebody was talking about a med school, or they were a doctor at this point, but when they had gone through med school, that they rewrote their entire textbook.
that's how he or she made it stick.
Right.
That's by rewriting it.
Yeah, that's how they made it through med school, was literally rewriting the entire book word for word by hand. That's how they took the information in.
Wow.
Yeah, you just have to figure out what works for you, don't you?
Right.
Yeah, but I'm like that. So they never slept, obviously, for the year they were in med school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you figure out what
diligence right there.
You do it.
I don't know. There's always a way.
Yeah, when you run into successful dyslexics in any field, no matter what it is they do, diligence is one of those things that's usually on their checklist of characteristics. These people that persevere. They make things happen in many different ways, but they're persistent.
Definitely. So I wanted to say thank you so much for coming on today and talking about Mical.
Well, thanks for
an amazing film. Is it? And it's loaded up on Netflix, correct?
It's on Netflix, so you can watch it for free right now, and it has just been put on Amazon as well. Okay. So it is on Amazon. Now, you do have to have an Amazon subscription. It's on Amazon Prime right now. So if you have a subscription right now, it's free. But we wanted it to be on YouTube as well, because we wanted it to be used during Dyslexia Awareness Month. In schools. We're going to send out the YouTube links to 75,000 addresses next week with the Just Teach Me pack, which has the Mical resources and other resources about dyslexia and dyslexia awareness around the world. So yeah, we wanted it to be free, so you can watch it right now on Netflix for free. You can just Google it and get the link that way, or you can go to micalthefilm.com and it'll link you through.
And with Teach My Kid to Read, we're hosting a screening at Mical, and we're going to have a live Q&A session with both you and Mike. And
we're excited about that. Yes.
Yeah. And that's very exciting.
We didn't get to do it in person, but we're excited to do it virtually. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm really looking forward to being able to host the live Q&A with both you and Mike. I think that's going to be amazing. And your book as well. Congratulations on the book and the release. And hopefully U.S. Customs releases it soon.
Yes. Yeah. Available in Europe now, Europe and other parts of the world, but America should be pretty soon. Hopefully in the next few days, this next week maybe.
When we hold things up in customs, we do a really good job of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Some crazy hoops we've had to jump through, all kinds of strange things. We didn't have the boxes checked quite right. They didn't. We had to send letters to confirm that the person receiving the books on the other end actually was an officer of the company, and so we had to send letters and say, yes, she is, and the chief financial officer, she is indeed, because they didn't like her business card. Her business card said something other than chief financial officer. I don't remember what it says, but it's something accounting or something. It's something slightly different, and they said, oh no, well, she can't receive the books.
Oh wow.
Oh well.
Well, the best things come to those who wait. So. But thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for taking the time to join us today, especially at tea time, your time. Tea time.
Tea time. Well, you're so welcome. Thanks for having me. Sorry for all the technical
pleasure.
Yes.
No. I think technical difficulties are just a way of 2020 life, right?
Yeah, they seem to be.
And we will be back next week, Enid.
Yes, next week with one of my students, actually, who has started a YouTube channel talking about dyslexia. So
how fun.
I'm really excited about that.
Exciting. How old is the student?
Zach, and he's going to kill me because I always have a hard time saying his last name.
What, is he a teenager or a?
He's a teenager.
Oh
And,
yeah, that's exciting.
yeah, so I'm so
Okay,
excited.
that'll be a
So,
fun one.
yeah, no, he's actually, he was going to watch today, and he's excited about being on next week and talking about his experiences with dyslexia, as well as giving advice to parents and to young people about their, you know, what they're going through.
Well,
So I'm
hi,
really
Zach.
excited
We'll
that
look
he wants
forward
to
to that.
share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, and so we will see everybody next weekend for our next coffee talk. And Tiffany, thank you so much again.
You're so
Thank
welcome.
you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Everybody
Bye,
have a
ladies.
really great weekend.
I know, bye.
Bye-bye.